Okay, good morning, evening, night, wherever you're coming from. We're streaming here live again from the Singapore FinTech Festival, and we're back. We're back here with the DFSO and Columbia University, and we're very enthused to really talk about some examples and how individuals can get involved with this incredible organization. And so let me just introduce who we've got with us on the call. And we're just today, not just, but incredibly, we're having a panel discussion. And so we have Jason here with us, Buck Whites. And Jason, thanks again for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Dan.
Great. And Dr. Leon Perlman, thank you, Dr. Perlman.
My pleasure.
And also Keith Bowie, who we've had on a number of webinars. It's great to see you again, Keith.
Andrew, Dan, Tim, great to be back.
Awesome. And then we have Mr., and I've been saying Mr. a lot.
Yeah.
Where is that? So,
Mr. Vasco was my father.
I know you pointed that out the other day, but Tim Vasco, who's the CEO and our Chief Executive Officer of BlockCerts Blockchain, and I'm Dan Gay. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of BlockCerts Blockchain again. So thank you again for joining us, everyone, and for everybody around the world. And we'd like to just ask some questions about the foundation. And if you would just give us a brief encapsulation of what you're doing, and that'll kind of get everybody kicked off here.
So, yeah, can one of you guys just tell people a little bit about what the Digital Financial Standards Observatory is at Columbia University, and of course with grants generously from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Let's start with that just to set the stage, and then we'll talk a little bit about how this whole thing came about and works actually for what's happening there.
Sure, Tim. So the Digital Financial Services Observatory is a project at the Columbia Institute for Teleinformation, which is a research center at the business school at Columbia. We started in 2015 out of the idea that digital financial services are becoming a larger and larger piece of the economic system, that they're important, and that it's also a great way of bringing in the unconnected and the underserved around the world into the financial system. So Dr. Perlman approached us with the idea of starting this observatory and starting this project, which he founded and has led since 2015, when the project really got started. In its opening stages, we designed model laws and model regulations for DFS services for regulators around the world to adopt and implement so that they best operate, best services, as well as wrote numerous white papers on various issues affecting digital financial services, and hosted summits and webinars bringing together luminaries and academics around the world who are interested in this topic. In 2018, we transitioned into a new phase that deals with cybersecurity, as we recognize the fact that unless people feel confident in the systems that they're using, they will have difficulty adopting and implementing these systems. So you don't want to basically put your life savings into a monetary system that then attracts bad actors who are going to steal your money, basically. So we've been, for the last 2 years, working on a risk management framework. Thank you very much. We've been working on a automated risk management framework that would handle how companies would implement various levels of cybersecurity defense and handle attacks and issues in the cybersecurity field. My compatriot Keith Bowie will be glad to speak more to that, as he has basically taken the lead in developing those standards and ideals. So Keith, if you'd like to jump in and discuss that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jason.
Sure.
Yes, yeah, I've been with the DFSO for just over a year now, and my main task has been looking at this actionable cybersecurity risk management framework, which was an initiative that was born out of Dr. Perlman's research and physical visits to countries that have big DFS ecosystems, and it was recognized that as this was becoming more important, that cyber hackers were kind of moving from the developed world into the developing world, and targeting these ecosystems for financial gain. So we've put together this framework, which we believe is a one of a kind, because it's targeted at the DFS ecosystem, and while there is potential for it to be used in other areas for small and medium-sized businesses, DFS was our main target at the moment. But it's also a process-based framework, so not just do this, but how you should do it as well. And it doesn't only encompass, people or like banks or credit unions that have good cyber hygiene around there at the moment, could potentially be improved, but got good cyber hygiene. But it's targeted at the whole ecosystem. So from someone who's maybe got a point of sale terminal in a bodega or a village somewhere, giving them advice on both how to protect themselves and then minimize the impact of an attack should it happen. So we've got kind of two main components. One is the preventative, and then one is the reactive. We really believe that this is something that's A, needed, and B, we think can be very usable within the DFS ecosystem.
Well, Keith, you bring up a good point about usability, and that's when BlockCerts got involved with the DFSO. That's a big part of what we're here to talk about, which is how do we take these systems, and they are complex. Let's face it, the attacks are complex, the industry is complex, and we may have a street side vendor who is using a digital point of sale, which is an easy entry point for a hacker to come in and infiltrate a system that could be have a much larger impact. So, these are the kinds of things, holes in the universe, if you will, of digital financial services that need to be plugged. So as we come in and we start looking at this, we're looking at really commercial participation and ways to bring the effective use of these systems to the businesses out there that manage and run these systems. So really, from a fundamental standpoint, when the large enterprises as well as the medium and small all the way are connected across the ecosystem, now all of a sudden we have a completely different world, and it changes so many things. How do you view that? And
yeah, I think that's a really good point. So the framework at the moment is, it's a set of processes, guidelines, etc., and it's all in written form. So and we've tried to target it so that people with the less level of security or less high cyber hygiene can understand what they should do. So we've not actually gone and recommended vendors or anything.
right.
Buy this vendor for your firewall, buy this vendor for your virus protection. We've kind of got it to a point where people can say, hey, I understand what this means, and now for my organization, this is how it works. But through our
well, that's kind of the basis or the point of a standard, right? Like, it doesn't matter whose hardware is on top of that or what software platform there is. If it's got the standards built in,
you've got it, yeah. And then look, this is all built on international standard foundations. We've put our own IP on top of it, but there's good frameworks and good standards out there that we've built on top of.
Sure.
So going through our reviews, and we're in beta test just now, and we have several, maybe about a dozen organizations of varying sizes giving us feedback on the framework at the moment. But a kind of common theme was, if you had this as an application or something we could use visually, it would be a game changer, which is, where you guys have kindly, or our BlockCerts have kindly offered to come in and partner with us to get that done.
Right.
So, and importantly, making sure that from a usability perspective, the people at the bottom end who maybe, and we got this directly from one country and one regulator, was not only do people have digital illiteracy, they have a low literacy level in general. So we have to kind of make it really simple to use. And I think given the fact that your platform is both, you could use it on a laptop, a computer, but also on a mobile device, that's really powerful for us.
Well, and so you guys are educators, and you're explaining this at a high level all the time. When we start looking at implementation and moving it from education and from kind of theory into operation, we're looking to partner, I guess you will, with the commercial community, right?
Yeah, here we are. Yeah.
And so as a result, what we're doing is looking for founders. So maybe we can talk a little bit about what the founders are and how that foundation can be established as becoming a founder of the DFSO and what it means to be part of the regulatory framework that is going to be the underpinning of these standards.
You want to say that one, Jason?
Sure. So the concept behind the founders is we're looking to bring in and partner with several corporate and industry players who can see and understand the value that is going to be added by this RegTech solution to basically deal with a lot of the compliance issues and to deal with cybersecurity issues to make sure that customers and the company itself is able to handle all of this stuff going forward. So as this is getting rolled out, we need to partner with corporations and players to test it, to integrate it into sandboxes, to see where there are issues that maybe, as you said, we're academics, we sit in our white tower and, ivory tower and, try to figure out what the problems are. But at the end of the day, the Safaricom, for instance, is going to know its users and its problems a lot better than we are because we're not dealing with them on a daily basis.
Right.
So if they know that, for instance, that a certain percentage of their customers are using feature phones that time out, for instance, after 10 minutes of connectivity, and therefore there's a vulnerability that if you slow the network down so that you can't complete a transaction within 10 minutes, you're going to be able to intercept fund transfers, for instance.
Yes.
That may not be something that we're able to recognize, but they're well aware of. And so we need to put that kind of information into the ARMF. We need to integrate that as well to see how that usability, how these threats, how these problems deal with it, but also to get buy-in that this software actually gets used. It's very easy for us to produce it and then to just say, hey, here it is. And the world, what's the old expression? You can invent a better mousetrap, but the world won't necessarily beat a path to your door. You got to sell it. And so we need to partner with industry and industry members who understand the value of this and want to get it out there with us as our partners. So we're looking for founders to be on the ground floor of this, that really see the value in it, and we really want to work with them to make this a huge success.
Well, and
that brings up one point.
It's that whole point about foundation, right?
Sure.
Creating the standards, creating the foundation. And I think one of the important aspects that commercially is very real is the cost of a cybersecurity attack, the cost to everybody, both the one end, on the one end, we look at Equifax, perfect example of 140 million, 150 million people affected, identity theft that could go on for years, and billions and billions of dollars of fines, and fines really after the fact don't do it, right? The idea is create a framework where we don't have these things happen. We are real-time operable. And when I think foundation, I think being part of setting the standards helps establish what standards you want to hold your own firm accountable to.
Sure.
What you think other firms should. So you by becoming a founder, you actually do have really a big impact on how this does roll out to the world, because there's no question the world needs it. There's no question that if you really want to go look at a line item on a financial statement, you can certainly look at my risk premium just went way down because I've got some standards in here. We're seeing the emergence of chief security officers in organizations.
Exactly.
That go one step further than CCOs, chief compliance officers. So as we bring this together, I think this founders network is going to be really critical in having a voice, but not only a voice, a applicable solution for their firms and other firms that they associate with to help plug these holes, don't you?
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is also there's also the opportunity to do good in the world. I know it sounds a little trite to say that, but I mean, we think about it sitting here in the US and in Canada, you know, as you mentioned, the Equifax hack, right? So the Equifax hack happens, the government steps in, they send out a year's worth of security, they monitor your social security number, et cetera, and basically the world moves on. But a lot of these services that are being used in other parts of the world are being used not necessarily for, you know, those kinds of transactions, but rather for emergency transactions. When there is a famine, when there is, you know, when there is a natural disaster, when, you know, COVID, for instance, happens, and you have, you know, millions of people hunkered down and can't work, can't leave their house. And so the government needs to send out very quickly and very efficiently subsistence payments in order for people to basically continue to live their lives. You know, here in the US, you know, some people are living off savings and things like that. But in other parts of the world, people need to be able to receive money just to be able to even buy food so that they can, you know, make ends meet for the day. So if something happens to that system and the system goes down, or there isn't trust in that system, you're talking about people not getting their money to go and be able to buy dinner that night. And so there needs to be safety in that system. And so for those founders, for those people to come in, there is a value also in being able to not just set those standards, but to help around the world with building a network that is eventually going to be able to provide these services with some safety and security backing it, because we've implemented those standards, because we've looked into what these issues could and will be, and really built that up to really, you know, do something that will be long lasting and helpful.
Well, and I think, Jason, you bring a really good point up, which is social capital, right? This idea of social capital and the social bottom line, really. And when we look at this, at the end of the day, especially right now with COVID, we're looking at, I think the $1 trillion aid package in the United States is either passed or about to pass. We've got, I think in Canada here where I am, I think we've got half a $500 billion already invested in the project. And we looked at BlockCerts at a project called TOKENIZED, which would actually track these payments, because with those kinds of, with trillions all over the world being moved into what is supposed to make a social impact, and which we all know that are in the economic world know that's going to have to be recovery money, but recovery money doesn't mean it never has to regenerate or come back into the system. Like, we have to be able to recreate a better system and recover this recovery money, right? We also have to make sure it gets to the right places. And if we can't do that, then all of a sudden it's just like dropping dollar bills out of a helicopter aren't going to help too much, right? It's not going to get to the right places. And I think we could probably go through history academically and find out thousands of examples of where that didn't work. And what we have here at the DFSO is a way to say this will work, it can work, and we're ready to implement it with founders. That's the point. Like, this was started with very much foresight by you guys, by your team, Dr. Perlman and the Columbia University, with 5 years ago. This didn't just come out of nowhere. And now all this research is ready to commercialize and be there for this huge social need that's out there.
Yeah, and I think, you know, unfortunately, due to COVID, Leon and I were, we didn't get to do our Phineas Fogg impersonations by sort of going around the world.
Right.
I think Leon's obviously visited lots of these places, these countries, and looked at the ecosystem and worked with regulators and that. So Leon, maybe you could give your view on what Tim's just said about the need and the use cases that we're looking at from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been interacting with a whole range of entities and persons in the DFS ecosystem. Everyone from central banks down to their supervised entities, tier 1 banks, tier 2 banks, DFS service providers, mobile operators, aggregators of services, and agents. And our interactions have shown a need for the risk management framework along that value chain. So we've identified the central banks especially as being able to, if you will, curate the risk management framework in terms of its implementation. And we're discussing at the moment methods to do that, including certification of the risk management framework in some way or another. Another rationale for the risk management framework was in terms of the commercial aspects, so not just on a regulatory basis, but giving safe harbor, if you will, to companies in their contractual negotiations with especially smaller entities, insofar as the risk management framework would be adopted by both parties, bilaterally or multilaterally, of those who are part of a contract, so that there's some sort of safe harbor that everybody is equilibrated on use of the risk management framework and the underlying processes and preventative actions that need to be taken, or reactive actions that need to be taken in the case of any security breach, or for that matter, building any resilience. So those are the types of entities we've interacted with, and hoping to do a lot more beta testing with.
Well, I think, Dr. Perlman, I think that the interesting part of that is that these entities are the ones responsible for this massive, like really billions of people population, right?
Yes.
And that's what's trying to, when before COVID happened, we were talking about financial inclusion, we were talking about economic equality and even digital inclusion, right? Now it's more than ever got a compound effect on how we bring these new opportunities in for the globe, not only to recover, but include all of these people as well. Don't you believe that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And change was needed before, but certainly now, because of COVID, it's facilitated an even greater need, which will enable us to make significant change for the future.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how we get there. So Jason and Keith and Dr. Perlman, we've been putting this project together now for actually we started, Keith, in it's hard to believe, last February. It is really difficult to believe all the way the world's changed. And what we're doing is we're holding this opportunity open for the founders to come in,
right,
to be part of the I'd say operationalizing of the framework. And I really want to say operationalizing, because there are, as you pointed out, Jason, so many benefits like social capital, just internal capital structures and things like that that are protected. And as Dr. Perlman pointed out, the infrastructure throughout these entities that other organizations are interacting with or going to want to interact with. Right. Yeah. So we're building this founders network. We have 3 established kind of formats for coming in as a founder. And over the next several weeks, giving the holidays time to come in and give everybody a bit of a break, we're going to be talking about how founders can get involved, how they can be part of this sponsorship. Just like, you know, again, years ago, the Gates Foundation came in to support you. And I think the Sloan Foundation even supported the Columbia University department that you run, Jason, didn't they?
That's correct. We were a Sloan Center for about 10 years,
right?
From 2000 to 2010.
Yeah. So we have a long-established, proven success rate with building these structures out, and we really want to extend that now out to the larger community and get these founders networks built. So we will be hosting webinars and seminars about how you can become a founder. Of course, it's an application process like anything else, especially with the institution of Columbia. We want to make sure that the organizations that do come in, not everybody's going to get in. I mean, let's face it, we want solid participants, and we want proper structures in place so that this does become a global standard. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we need to make sure that the fit is there, so that the ability of the organization to integrate and to grow out the project needs to be on track. And so we're looking for various levels of founders for exactly that, so that we have a good mix of different founders who are able to put this project on its best foundation.
And I think you're keeping it fairly close and tight at this point now, like Q1 2021, and as you said, the targeted founder group. After that, of course, there will be more of a broad participation availability. But right now, we don't want to slow the project down. We want to speed it up. So we're looking for these founders who can really add this into their infrastructure and add value to these standards, so that we can move this project forward and get it into the world as fast as possible. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yeah,
Great.
I think something else to sort of build on top. Although we've talked a lot about the risk management framework in this session, you know, we see this as one module of something built on a common base. There's several other, you know, applications that we have ideas to build, you know, capacity and resiliency around cyber and the same kind of ecosystem we're looking at. So, you know, while we have our ideas, we'd hope that these sponsors can come and help, you know, not only assist us with, you know, financially, but intellectually, because they get to drive the program, right? So, you know, and I think, you know, what Leon said about the commercial opportunity of having, two vendors or third parties having this as part of a contract. Maybe think longer term, how cool would it be to be part of something that you have maybe on your mobile phone, that you could have evidence that, yes, I'm doing this according to the framework. The regulators could see it, your counterparties could see it. It's almost like an exchange, right? It's at your fingertips. And I think building something like that would be a great thing for any organization to be part of.
Well, and it's this idea of trust. We talk a lot at BlockCerts about trustonomics. And really, at the end of the day, isn't that what trust, like the economics of trust are really here to stay? Yeah,
totally.
And I see a long list of benefits, and Jason, you talked about, you know, the greater good and some of those benefits, and everyone's talked about some of the key benefits, but you know, benefits of collaboration between companies and new partnerships, and there are just so many worthwhile benefits of being a part of this that companies will receive and be a part of as they get involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for spending the time with us to explain more about the Founders Network, about the standards, about how this is operationalizing. We will be distributing out to all of the viewers who register here when our next webinar will be, and actually the application process is online. So you should be able to go directly from the links on this video into the application framework, read more about the DFSO. and the contact information is right there. So please do join the movement to make this social capital, financial capital, digital financial capital much more powerful in the world. We need it more than ever, and we're really excited about all the work you guys have done over these years to see that happens in 2021 as quickly as possible. So thank you, and as I always like to say, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay digitally